Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the cave. My name is Nubs. Today, we're going to do something a little different. I haven't had much energy this week, so unfortunately, I haven't finished any pieces to show you guys. So, I thought we'd do a quick top 10 things that people make mistakes on or need to learn when they're starting on stained glass. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, let's start off the list with the number one, which is practice cutting. I know that sounds pretty straightforward and it sounds kind of ridiculous, but the reality is you see that far too often in the forums where people are having trouble and they've gone out and bought this really nice glass and then they're having trouble and they're cutting and they're breaking all their pieces. They can't cut out a circle or a wave or something like that without snapping in the wrong spot. And they're worried that they're not going to have enough glass to finish their project. Get yourself some cheap glass. Get some industrial grade glass or window pane glass. You can often get it at a window manufacturer if you have one in your area. They'll sell you offcuts. Stained glass stores, also sell a lot of industrial glass, because they use it on the outside of panels, for clear glass. The nice thing about it's a single hardness, so it's very forgiving, very easy to cut. And you can learn how your glass is going to break. So if you're trying to cut out a half circle, go gentle with your pliers, and you can see the score and the break start going along, and you're going to understand what the glass is going to do. Glass will not go around a circle just on its own. If you use a pair of running pliers, it's going to go wildly off. But if you break it slowly and you massage it to get it to break off, you will be able to cut some really intricate pieces. But it's very difficult to learn on really nice glass because you have different hardnesses. You have soft spots, hard spots. You can have textures and all of this stuff. Learn on the cheap glass first, then move over to the good glass. Number two, cutting your pattern. It's so important to learn this one simple skill. You see that often, people talk about how much grinding they have to do. You shouldn't have to do a whole lot of grinding, but when you're starting out, you're going to do a little bit more. But remember that when you trace up, with a marker around your piece, that is on the outside of your glass. You don't want that. You want to cut off that line or just slightly at that line. Also keeping in mind that you're going to be adding, a millimeter or two to your glass when you're putting on your copper foil. So you don't want to be cutting outside that line and then grinding to it. You want to be able to cut as close to that line or off that line as you can. Just try to avoid having to do all of your pieces on the grinder, because then it becomes more of a chore and it becomes a lot longer, and your projects will take a whole day to complete when it really can be done in a couple hours. The number three would be, don't limit yourself just to sun catchers. People get into this and they say, well, I don't really want sun catchers. Well, you've got great little things like this guy right here. You can make this rocking horse, or you can make Kleenex holders. There's so many things out there that you can make. You can make jewelry boxes. You can make so many amazing different projects that use the different glasses that they can make great gifts. Something like this Kleenex box, it is beginner friendly. It can be done in any color, fit any decor. They're heavy, so when you pull a Kleenex out, it doesn't pull the whole box out, so you can be on a nightstand, and they're just great for gifts. But even this guy here, you can make anything you can dream of with glass. You make obviously lampshades, but those are, I wouldn't recommend those until you've got some practice on. But there's so much out there that you can do. So don't just limit yourself to the sun catchers if that's not what makes you happy. If you want to do other things, feel free. This guy here, he's pretty straightforward. It's not a lot. It's not technically difficult to make, and I would definitely recommend, if you can, try something else. It doesn't have to be just stained glass. Number four, using the correct solder. What you're looking for for copper foil is 60-40 solder, 60 tin, 40 lead, typically around 3 millimeters wide. They come in these little spools. You don't want something with flux built into it or rosin core or anything like that. You just want standard straight 60-40 solder, and you'll be good to go. Number five, clean your pieces right away if you're not going to finish. I always say if you're going to do your soldering or you're going to do your patina, you should have enough time to do it start to finish. But if something comes up, as life always happens, clean it. Take the 2 minutes, spray it down, use quick clean, or make your own cleaner. You can make with water, baking soda, and Dawn dish soap. Just clean off your part. You don't want to leave, especially flux, which is an acid. You don't want to leave that on your part overnight or for a couple of days if you didn't have time to get back to it. It will, slowly etch and, oxidize all of your copper. You can usually clean it and get it back, using steel wool and stuff like that, but it's a lot of elbow grease and a lot of time when you could just spend 2 minutes to clean it. Even if you don't have time right then, come back to it after a few minutes and quickly clean it. You'll be good to go. Number six is don't use too much flux. That's one thing you see a lot of is people putting on way too much flux. Flux is there to it's an acid, and it's there to help promote the adhesion between your copper and your solder and help your solder flow nicely. But if you put too much on it, you're going to notice that you're going to see it starting to spit as it heats up, and you'll get these little pinholes in your solder. So if you're noticing that, that's usually what it's coming from. It's you've heated up the flux, and there's so much in there that it doesn't know what to do, and it just starts to spit. You just need to put on and make sure that your copper is coated well, but that's going to be more than enough. And if you're having issues with the solder flowing, you can always add, but you can't take it away. So I would just say don't use too much flux. Number seven, use the correct soldering iron. You don't have to go out and buy the $500 super duper soldering iron with multiple temperatures. You just need a good soldering iron. You don't want some small little soldering iron that's meant for wires and stuff like that, like a 60 watt. You want between 80 and 100 watts. I've been using this soldering iron. This is my second one. You'll see in the previous video, you may have noticed, but it's a simple one. If you can, you add a rheostat to it. That allows you to even fine tune, a set temperature one like this. But you don't need to have the most expensive, but just make sure that you get the right soldering iron. Number eight is just maintaining your tools. I see that far too often. People saying that their tools are degrading. Well, if you're putting on flux, and you're holding your pieces with your pliers, again, it's an acid. It's gonna get them dirty. It's gonna make them sticky. And like your set screw on your running pliers, you have a screw that allows you to open and close the jaws. Well, if that moves, opens and closes, you're going to notice that when you're trying to snap your glass, it's a little different than you're used to. It's just because you have to maintain, your tools. Just keep them clean, keep them ready to go. If you're holding your pliers with gloved hands when you're doing your patina, but you put your pliers away and you don't clean them, and then you go hold it with your hands later. Say you're cutting your glass, you're going to be getting that flux onto your hands or the patina onto your hands. So just clean the tools. When you clean your part, clean your tools. It takes 30 seconds. Number nine, follow basic safety. Glasses. You have to be wearing glasses. It's so important. You don't want to ever run out and get a piece of glass in your eye. When you're cutting your glass and you're snapping your glass, little shards can come up. Or when you're sitting here on your grinder. On my grinder, I have a small shield here with a magnifying glass on it, because I'm half blind at this point. But you can't see it in the video, but it's completely covered in glass dust. And that's just because when you're grinding, it's not just coming around the outside. They have these little splash shields. That's usually for the water that's going to come off of it, but you're going to get fine glass dust no matter what happens. And you want to keep yourself safe. So wearing your glasses is so important. When you're doing your flex and your patina, wear gloves. You can either get a pair of rubber gloves that you can reuse, or just get yourself some disposable gloves, but you don't want this stuff on your hands. If for whatever reason you have it on your hands, I always recommend you have a heavy metal soap. You can get that usually at art supply stores or in stained glass stores. It's great for just making sure that you don't have any flux or patina or stuff like that on your hands. It's great to just get that off. Same thing with your solder. Just make sure that it's not in your skin or anything like that. Closed-toe shoes. I never recommend somebody doing this in barefoot or in flip-flops or Crocs, because again, you're getting little bits of glass. So it's very important to have that, and you should have a broom nearby to broom off your area, so that you're not walking in it and then traipsing through your house with glass dust and stuff like that. Thing number 10, don't give up. I promise you can do this. No matter what area you're having trouble in, there's forums, there's videos, there's tutorials, that can help you out if you don't have, an area and someone to ask in your area. Cutting glass is not all that difficult, but it just takes practice. That's why I recommend my number one thing is practice. It doesn't have to be expensive. Just get the cheap glass. If soldering is your issue, soldering can always be gone back over. So if you don't like the part and you're having too much trouble, clean it off, walk away, come back to it later. You just have to reapply some flux over your solder, and you can reheat that solder. If it's too flat, that means you need to add more. If it's too wide, that means you probably added too much, and you can take solder off. You can tilt your part and just remove some of the solder. there's so much that you can do, and you can always go back on things like soldering. Patina is pretty straightforward, and if you're having issues with that, you can practice. Leave it for 2 minutes or leave it for 5 minutes to see the difference on how dark it gets. Just make sure that you've cleaned your part before you get into any of those stages, and you'll find it much easier. But if you're having trouble, leave a comment below, and I can probably answer it, or somebody else in any one of the Reddit forums, Facebook forums. There's so many places you can go. YouTube obviously has videos for just about everything. Take your time, learn, but don't give up, because you can do this. And with that, that's my top 10 list. And as always, I wish you all the best and all the luck in your own stained glass projects. And thank you very much.